Alright, here's your video for commonly confused word 7. First, your instructions. Open your notebook to section 2, mechanics. Title a new page, commonly confused word 7. And then make sure to follow my instructions as you go. You'll be asked to take notes and write some sentences. Alright, first, farther versus further. Take notes. You only need to write the definition, not the example. Farther. It refers to a physical distance, like miles away. So make sure you write down the definition of farther. For example, the farther Brandon walked down the mountain, the better he felt. You do not have to write down the example. Further. Further is a figurative distance, like an amount of time, quantity, or degree. Write down the definition for further. For example, as Amanda pushed further towards her goal of becoming a gymnast, she became more excited. You do not have to write down the example. Alright, it's practice time. So write out the correct version of each sentence. You're going to want to write out the whole sentence using the correct word. Number 1. Jacqueline bet that she could walk farther/further than Jetta. So what you're going to do is write out the sentence using the correct word. Anna-E looked farther/further into her future and was optimistic. Again, write out the whole sentence using the correct word. Alright, fewer versus less. Remember to take notes. You only need to write the definition, not the example. Fewer refers to separate countable units like marbles or the number of basketball players on a court. For example, the detective told Sandra that there were fewer crimes last year. We used fewer because crimes are countable. We can count the number of them. Less. Less refers to uncountable items like water or skill level. For example, Peter asked the waitress for less coffee in his next refill. See, we used less there because he wouldn't ask for 2 less coffee units in his next refill, just less. Remember just to write down the definitions. You do not have to write down the examples. Write out the correct version of each sentence. Priscilla was upset because she had fewer/less pennies than Chad had. Remember, think, countable units. Which one do we use for countable? If you have to go back and check, then please do. Harsh borrowed Austin's phone because Harsh had fewer/less battery life left. Good versus well. Remember, just to write down the definitions, you do not have to write down the example. Good. Good is an adjective that describes nouns. For example, Stephen is a good dancer. In this case, dancer is a noun, so we can use good to describe the noun dancer. We would not say Stephen is a well dancer, because dancer is a noun. So is Stephen. Well. Well is an adverb that describes verbs. So for example, I did well on my test, but not perfect. In this case, did is the verb, so we use well. Another example would be, Patrick went home because he was not feeling well. In this case, feeling is the verb, so we use well. Practice time. Write out the correct version of each sentence. Oh man, that is a good/well piece of cake. Which one? Write out the sentence using the correct word. You performed so good/well. Chris danced good/well for the competition. Into versus into. Remember, only write down the definition. Into. Into is a preposition that shows movement toward the inside of something. You're actually going inside of something. For example, Aman dove headfirst into the pool. In this case, Aman is going into the water. Into. A combination of the words in and to. For example, Parneet was advised to turn herself in to the police. Notice that turn herself in is the phrase, and then it's saying to who. So it's separate. She's not actually going into the police. Practice time. Fernando ran into the soccer field during the game, causing the referee to chase after him. Brian checked into his hotel for a relaxing weekend getaway. It's versus its. So it's with an apostrophe is simply a contraction for it is. So for example, it's hard for Dan to run long distances. If you want to know whether or not it needs if it needs an apostrophe, all you have to do is think, would it is work there instead of it? If it is would work there, then it does need an apostrophe. It's without an apostrophe shows ownership. It's a little bit backwards from what you're used to. For example, Kyle sent his phone back because its screen was cracked. In this case, the screen is the phone's. The phone is showing ownership of the screen. It is would not work here. So Kyle sent his phone back because it is screen was cracked. That makes no sense. But showing ownership does make sense in this case. Practice time. Satvik knew to return the money he found because it's the right thing to do. Teresa noticed a house with chipped paint on its window shutters. Remember, the trick is to ask yourself, would it is work? If so, then it's the one with the apostrophe. No versus no. No, with a K, means to understand. For example, I don't know what Elaine's plans are today. No, with an N, is the opposite of yes. For example, when I asked Charles if he had finished his homework, he said, no. Practice time. Write out the correct version of each sentence. It was important for Juliana to know the difference between farther and further for her essay. When students ask Miss Fiore to give them mints, Miss Fiore generally shakes her head, signaling no. No. All right, you're all done with the practice. So go to noredink.com and complete the assignment first. Then complete the quiz. Remember, the goal is to get 100% on the quizzes.